We'll wait. Oh, you're good? All right. Look, you gave me a look. I'm like, oh, what? All right, guys, we're going to call the meeting to order. 7 p.m. on the dot. Let's please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Louisa, can you do the roll call, please?
Teresa Bouzzade. Present. Michelle Coelho.
Present.
Kate Canetta.
Here.
Gladys Cooper.
Here.
Lauren Daly. Absent. Jesse Fernandez.
Here.
Bridget Curtin.
Here.
Julie Miliano.
Here.
Ralph.
Present?
Albert Russo.
Here.
And Lisa here.
All right, so just Lauren down here. Okay. Recognition, spotlight your school, Ellsworth Elementary School. All right, come on up. She did a spotlight.
Fantastic. Hello and good evening, everyone. My name is Marnie Durkin. I know you have a very busy agenda this evening, so I'm going to just briefly talk about Ellsworth Avenue School, but we certainly want to invite you to stop by at any time so that you can get to school, see the school and meet the students as well. So some of our accomplishments that are noteworthy is that Ellsworth Avenue School has been named a school of distinction for high growth in math each year since 2018. Staff have codified our core values which align with the district's mission and vision and help drive the work that we do every day. Academic growth is always a focus. Teachers meet to analyze student assessments so that they can plan for high quality instruction. One example from our recent benchmark data is the number of students of 4th and 5th grade who have increased their proficiency in math. The school community celebrates monthly. We get together to honor the students of the month. We also engage in activities with other schools such as the Alternative High School and Henry Abbott Technical School to learn more about different high school experiences. Staff and students continue to focus on their personal growth goals as well. The most exciting event this year has been the addition of the Ellsworth Annex. With the addition, we have not only increased the number of classrooms, but also have developed a great collaboration with the Danbury Schools Family and Community Engagement Center. This has been a wonderful addition to our school community. Our school is one of the district recipients of the VH1 Save the Music grant, which allows many of our students to take instrument lessons. We have participated in the Welcoming Schools walkthrough and continue to work on engagement with the community. Parenting programs take place in the evening. Community members engage in professional learning regarding a welcoming school environment. So thank you so much, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about our school.
Questions? That was the quickest presentation in the history of the board event. Any questions?
All right, thank you all. Yes, ma'am.
How many students do you have?
We have, I'm not sure of the exact enrollment, but it's 465.
You good at that, something, Julie? All right, great. Thank you so much for
Thank you
coming.
all.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Favorite part of the night, public participation. So the board welcomes public participation and asks that speakers please limit their comments to 3 minutes. Speakers may offer objective comments of school operations and programs that concern them. The board will not permit any expression of personal complaints or defamatory comments about Board of Education personnel and students, nor against any person connected with the Danbury school system. Anyone on the list? No one on the list? Anyone that's in the audience like to say a few words? No? Okay. Moving right along. The consent calendar. Gladys, can you make the motion?
I move that the Danbury Board will accept the consent calendar exhibit, lost my exhibit. Exhibit 23-47,
46.
46.
Motion by Gladys, and a second.
I'll second that.
Second by Bridget. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion carries. Okay, student representatives. Come on up.
Hello, we are representatives from Danbury High School's Board of Governors. My name is Maria Strategis and I am the Vice President of Events. So we just have a couple updates on what our school's been up to for the past month. To start off with sports, our cheerleading team won the FCAC championship, which everyone is very happy about. Boys varsity basketball players played Staples last week and won the FCAC championship game as well. The boys and girls track and field team both competed against several states in the New England Championship this past week. And the boys 4 times 800 meter team came in 4th overall and also competed in the 2-mile. The girls 4 times 200 meter team ran as well, and many personal beats were set. Wrestling went to the New England seniors and was not only a top placer for the state, a winner from our school, but we were also undefeated in the state of Connecticut. We have a new play coming up called Once Upon a Mattress that our theater department will be putting on from March 30th, March 31st, and April 1st as well. So it is expected to be a very good play, so we're expecting a good outcome from that. We will also have a matinee open to elementary schools during the school day. For some testing updates, SATs are scheduled for juniors on the 22nd, 23rd, 24th, and 28th of April. The makeup day for those who miss it is April 28th. NGSS testing for juniors just finished up, and there are currently some makeups going on for students that missed it. And we also can't wait to have the seniors graduate and the new freshmen come in with the school fair that happened this past Monday, which went very well. We had a club fair, an athletics fair, and a lot of seniors, not seniors, excuse me, incoming freshmen were in attendance. We also had upperclassmen come in and get shows as well.
During his fair, Mr. Donovan also gave an update on the new freshman academy, and Mr. Davidson talked to all the incoming freshmen, letting them know what's going to happen in the next few months. Online registration for 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th graders are opened up so they can choose their classes for next year. We also have AP Government and Politics class in the UNICEF Club taking action. Yesterday was a day of action called Save Our Schools, so we can get more funding since we are ranked 169 out of 169. They have posters, petitions that people can sign, and a bake sale to raise some money. They're also doing a protest at City Hall tonight. And then finally, seniors are hearing back from their colleges and starting to make choices on where they want to go and how to pay for it. So we just had Danbury's in-house scholarships open up, and at least for me, I've been procrastinating it. So, but that's all for today. Anyone, any questions?
Could you just state your name for the record?
Oh, yep, Jillian Patrick, Secretary of DOJ.
Hi, Jillian and Maria. It's good to see you both here at the board meeting. You said that really fast. I just want to make sure I understood. You said there was a protest this evening. Could you speak a little bit?
Yeah. So we recently came up on the issue that we have the least amount of funding in Connecticut for public high schools. And so the government and politics class and UNICEF Club wanted to raise awareness for the issue, considering that we're the biggest school in Connecticut. So they have a protest going on at City Hall. It's a friendly protest. They have some posters going up, and we have some teachers attending to make sure everything's stays calm and everything.
You guys made quite the impression this evening, haven't you? Good to see you both. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. One more question.
I stopped by City Hall on the way over to the meeting, and I just want to say the energy there was wonderful. There was a lot of students there, teachers, parents, and they're all supporting the schools. So, kudos to you for doing that.
Well,
Can you tell us what areas do you feel we're neglecting?
I think that the issue that students are trying to create more awareness around is probably the fact that Danbury High School is the largest public high school in the state of Connecticut, and there is an inequity when it comes to the funding we receive in comparison to other cities in the state as well that may have, and most likely do since we're at the largest students, and how that can create disadvantages when it comes to future endeavors and career preparedness. It can alter the program availability or students' willingness to take part in it, and I think that our students are doing a good job in taking that leadership initiative to try to just create awareness in the community and also step out and take the leadership initiative when a lot of students our age might not have done that previously. So it is a big step of confidence and just kind of maturity that they're getting as they get older and as they finish their chapter at Danbury High School to take
Just want to add something on to that. I know that with the posters, I went over, they had it during lunch, and I went over it, and I know some of them, like Maria said, they're concerned about like AP classes getting cut and not enough money for everything that we need. So they're concerned about not having paper towels in the restrooms, but also not being able to take the classes that they could potentially want to pursue later in life.
Anyone else?
Should I say something?
I just want to point out, Danbury is generally a population of 85,000 people, and we do have the largest school in high school in Connecticut. I don't think it's fair to equate us with bigger cities, with bigger populations, bigger tax bases in Hartford, New Haven, Bridgeport. That's all I want to say.
Anything else? Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Ross, thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you.
Presentation.
Thank you.
Says presentation.
Oh, the pilot program, yeah, sorry. Pilot program for the board meeting.
So tonight, we have on the agenda for you to finalize running the pilot program where we're going to move to one regular board meeting per month and one workshop meeting per month. And so you will see there is, I believe it's an action item. And so what we need to do, well, we've spoken with the policy committee about this as well, is we'll suspend just that portion of the bylaw that talks about having 2 meetings a month. And we will do it for a designated period of time, which is what we're required to do, so it'll be through the end of this school year. And then you all can make a decision at that time about whether you want to continue with the model for next year, in which case we'll make changes to the bylaw. But the suspension of it to do something temporary seemed to make the most sense so that you don't need to vote in new bylaws and then vote them again if you change your mind. So you will see there is attached in your materials a sample of the schedule, and there's also a copy of the bylaws attached. It's really papering the deal.
So board chair and board, I also wanted to point out in exhibit 2347, please note there are 2 asterisks in June. Initially, our board meetings were scheduled for the 2nd and 4th week in June, as they typically are throughout the school year, so that we can remain on our every 2-week calendar. We are proposing to move the first meeting to the first Wednesday in June, and then 2 weeks later, the 3rd weekend in June. So that's why the asterisk is there, and the second meeting is scheduled as a special meeting because it's not going to be the 4th meeting of the 4th Wednesday of the month. So just wanted to also point that out.
So just, Kevin, or Kim, can you speak on the format of what each meeting / workshop would be? So we're gonna, instead of doing 2 full board meetings a month, we're gonna see if we're going to do a workshop and a regular board meeting. Can you just
Right.
speak to?
So the intention would be to move a lot of the kind of nuts and bolts of the work that you do, like the consent calendars, budget movements, that kind of thing, to move that business to that one business meeting of the month. But on the workshop model, it's really designed to give you an opportunity to engage with the team as they come and talk to you about different topics. So it might be a workshop on student achievement data. It will give you, in that forum, an opportunity that you don't generally have in this forum, to be able to engage with the presenters of the workshop and dive a little bit deeper and get some of your questions answered on a dedicated topic content.
Right, so one of the reasons for talking about this, and we can discuss it obviously, it was, my opinion in some cases is when we get a presentation at a regular board meeting, that's 15 minutes and a lot of data and information, and we can't, it's, for me anyway, I'll speak of myself, it's hard for me sometimes to process all the stuff at once and try to see what we're doing, and it's a lot of information. Not saying those presentations are designed that way to throw anybody off, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is it gives an opportunity to sit down and go 1 or 2 layers deeper on issues. Like, perfect example, we did the academy workshop, and it was like 5 minutes before the meeting, hurry up, ask the questions, and then poof, it's gone. So I'm thinking that's kind of one of the things that sparked this whole format, and talking to some administrations and saying, yeah, we want to give you, we welcome the questions, but we a short period of time. So as long as we are doing what we're obligated to do by the votes and stuff like that, that's kind of the background behind it. So I guess this is the time for discussion, right?
Discussion, sir.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I may.
You should.
Thank you. I personally oppose amending the bylaws and changing our model for 3 reasons. First of all, you limit public participation to 1 night a month rather than 2. Student representatives meeting here, bringing this up to speed 1 time a month instead of 2. And you also limit the educational staff that wish to speak to 1 time instead of 2 times a month. And that's 50% decrease. And sometimes these topics are time sensitive, and my opinion, sir.
So for clarification, we invite the students to once a month, right? Currently?
Every board.
So every morning meeting. Okay.
Yeah. The workshops are open meetings, so if you wanted to build in comment periods in those meetings, you can certainly do that. They have to be open meetings. So they're not executive session workshops, they're open meetings. Just to clarify that one point, but points well taken.
So the public could comment if they had a topic that was a hot button topic, they could speak on that even during the workshop.
You would build into the workshop an appropriate place for public comment. You might put it at the end, but you can certainly have control over the agenda that way, yes.
Or would the public comment have to be about the topic of the workshop?
I would say that would make the most sense, but.
Thank you.
Ms. Cooper. Oh, sorry.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but are there other districts that follow this format?
There are quite a few, and the most obvious ones that come to mind, Waterbury, Hartford also, and I think, as policy committee, I showed the schedule, and Hartford kind of does a nice side-by-side schedule that talks about what the topics are gonna be, so it's pretty thorough, so people are on notice kind of what's coming up. Yes. So, well, no, I can't tell you that I've looked through the 169 towns, but it's more.
We have Danbury, we are above the curve.
Scuba?
Yes. Maybe I've been on the board too long. I sort of really agree with Adam. I'm not in a mood to accept this. I have some questions about, sometimes we have things that we have to take care of. I know the month of June, July, we do not meet. If we're going to implement this, I would like to see it done in September, starting in September as a trial, and see how it works. I think that we have, do I want extra meetings? No. But I'm not comfortable moving forward with this right now. And I think about when we try to get expulsion hearings, you might have a whole new set of people on the board after November. And so, if other district has moved this way, let's do it as a trial, see if it's gonna work. If everybody on the board is comfortable with that, I would certainly support it. Right now, no, I would not support it.
Okay, good.
I believe this is a trial until the end of the school year. This is just, what, April, May, and June.
Not even, because June, there's 2 meetings scheduled.
Right.
So it's really just April.
But Al's concerns are certainly important. My problem is I was disappointed when we had the workshop and a few people were absent because they've already covered that topic. So I like the workshops, but I agree there could be an issue with important things that need to be tended to.
Anyone else?
I understand the concerns, I think, are
Can't hear you.
valid. Can you hear me? I think the concerns are valid, that everybody is saying, and I hear that. I think having it as just a temporary trial for a couple of months, I don't think would set us back that far as disrupting our policy. And it would give us just a little bit of glimpse on, will it help us, will it not help us? And we don't have to continue it. We could try it a couple of months, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But it may be something that we may like it. It may work for us, and it may give us a little bit of time to dive deeper into topics that, we sometimes don't want to be here very late on our regular board meetings, and so it gives us a workshop where we can, really talk about some stuff. So I'm not opposed to trying it out for a couple of months. It's not a long-term commitment. And then we can revisit it and decide if it's something we want to put into place or not.
I just have quick things. So, on the workshop side, what do we do Spotlight Your School? Once a month, or once every meeting?
Once a month. Sorry.
Once a month, yeah. So we would incorporate that for a little extra time for them in the workshop, right? Would
Or
that
you could do
be?
it in
You
the
keep
one
it where
month,
it
the
is.
one meeting, keep it where it is.
Okay.
I mean, I'm kind of building the plane as I fly it here too, so.
What's that?
I said I'm kind of building the plane while we're flying it here too. I think,
Yeah, and-
all those pieces, I think you certainly could put it in the beginning of the business meeting, right?
Yeah.
It's not uncommon for districts to try to bifurcate business meetings from kind of curriculum meetings, content meetings. That's not an uncommon thing.
Yeah, and to be honest, I'm okay either way. The issue is I get feedback by, oh, we didn't have enough time to go over this and over that. Now, I'm certainly, look, I mean, we could certainly schedule more workshops to go deeper into it. I mean, you know, I'm okay with that. I mean, I'm just, you know, just trying to do what I think is best for the situations that have arose. So when we're spending time on the academy or finance or something where it's like, oh, okay, and finance committees and that stuff is great, but, you know, a lot of that stuff doesn't translate into the main meeting and presentations and stuff like that. But I'm good, I'm bringing it up because, you know, that kind of some issues have come up and I'm just putting it out there. So I'm good either way. I'm not pushing one thing or another. So, I mean, I'm okay doing it on a trial basis. I mean, I would certainly not make a decision to do it permanently right now. I mean, because we don't know how it's gonna work. And we got some big things coming. We got the academy coming up, we got to deep in there. We got, you know, a lot of stuff coming up that we need to spend some time on. But how many meetings left? I mean, really? 4? I mean, no, 6.
2 in April, 2 in May,
Yeah.
and the 2 in June, say they were there. So it really would be 2 of your meetings weekly, for 2 workshops.
Okay, so 2 meetings out of 7 would be a workshop where we could focus on the academy and we could focus on something. I mean,
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, so if we want to have the workshops, so every time that we come to that second meeting, it's gonna strictly be a workshop.
yeah,
Uh,
yes.
Or what happens, you know, we have some committees that, you know, might have to come and not be a workshop. So that's why I guess, you know, there are certain things that we need to take care of, you know, budget comes, you know, we have to sort of work along with the city and do it. And we have to get, you know, call meetings to come and take care of business of the board. So, you know, that's what I was thinking.
I agree.
And I understand, you know, there can be a change, I don't doubt that. But again, you know, we're looking, it could be a full new board come December, and we can't get 3 people to do an expulsion here right now. So, you know.
I'd like to hear from other board members also before we put it to a vote, just to get what their feeling is. Because I like to do it kind of as a joint thing. If we're getting more towards the no, then understand.
I mean, on my end, I'm open to all suggestions, but I understand everybody's points. I mean, Al has a point, Ms. Cooper has a point, Laura Lisa has a point, but also Kim has a point. I mean, it's being productive. It's something that it could be good for us, but at the same time, it's minimizing the audience interaction with us. And there's a lot of things that we might be missing. So I don't know, we can put it as a trial, I don't mind, but we just gotta get together. It's like Ms. Cooper says, we have, right now, we cannot get together on expulsion meetings. And that, and like she also has a point that coming, this upcoming November, we might have new board members. And it might be difficult once we set this, go back. So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
You
everybody
could
has
always
a point.
change it, you could always change it back when there's new people here.
I don't mind.
Or for the new
going
season.
trial.
Yeah, this is just for,
Yeah, it's for,
Yeah, it's a trial.
yeah.
So instead of, yeah, I got it.
It's sunset, so if you want to amend your bylaws, you have to put a time in when it sunsets. So it has to expire. So when it expires, it just reverts back to your old policy,
Right.
unless you do something to permanently change it.
So I'd like to hear from Kate and Michelle also. Kate, would you like to count anyway?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll jump in. Thank you, Al.
Sure, thank you.
I don't know that I have a strong opposition to it. My concern in thinking about it is the length of the agenda for the nights that we do have meetings. You know, you're going to have to roll in a lot of minutes from the different committees. And it's going to require each of us at the table to really be focused and paying attention to all the information that's getting through in that single meeting. I'm not going to say that's not an area of concern for me, because it is. We've already reviewed a lot of material all at once. And I just want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence and taking care of that. But given that it's a trial basis, you know, if we're doing this through the end of the school year, I don't know that I have any strong opposition.
Michelle?
I'm open to the idea of trying it. I think it might allow us to be a lot more productive and get into a little bit more, of, like you said, the granular. That being said, as long as we can incorporate a time for the public to be heard, I think it's a good way for us to interact as a board and have the public, you know, be able to listen to that discussion. So I'm up for approving it until at least the end of the year and seeing how it goes. If not, we, you know, revert to the best practice.
Bridget?
I think it's a great concept, but I think we're rushing it. I don't think that a couple months is enough of a trial to see if this is something that works for us in the long term. So I think if we really want to do it, we commit to doing it for a full year. And we're not at that point yet. I think I would love to see if Kim could find districts that are equatable to us in size that also follow us along. If we had a couple more examples of districts who successfully advocated their meetings, that would be, I think, helpful for all of us. And I wouldn't mind taking the idea up again at one of our June meetings and discussing it for a long-term pilot. This short-term pilot, I don't think is going to give us more than the anecdotal evidence about whether it works or it doesn't. So, you know, a year pilot and trying a different format, that makes sense to me. 2 months, 2.5 months, I think we're not going to get the feeling for whether or not it's really going to work.
Jessica?
Being that I'm getting my feet wet, I'm just gathering all the information, and I'm sure there's some things that I haven't been exposed to. So obviously the public participation is extremely important because you need to hear what concerns are. So on a workshop, I'm assuming that in the beginning, because setting it up at the end might be kind of awkward.
Yeah, have people stand.
Because you don't know how much time you need for the workshop. And then let's just say after the first month, you realize that we need more time. Is that something that can be adjusted?
Yeah. Right, Kim?
Yep. It's really, the world's your oyster on this.
Yeah. No, I think public, that's a good point, but what Al brought that up in the beginning, is public participation is obviously important. That's, you know, what it's there for. Yeah, I don't want to limit that. So, I mean, I don't know, like you said, the format, you know, I mean, I guess let's just, if everybody feels comfortable, you want to get a consensus before we vote, or just vote?
I'll say a consensus, are we gonna start it now, or are we gonna wait until September? You wanna start it now? That's my question.
Well, that's the,
Well, the action, the thing is to start it for our next meeting, correct?
Again, it's up to you. I mean, if you suspend the bylaw now, yeah, you would do it for the next meeting. I'm just looking, I'm on that page 3 of your agenda today with all the future meetings. And I'm just kind of looking at the calendar, and that's Tuesday, Wednesday, Tuesday. It's every Tuesday, Wednesday, every other week, and every Wednesday with these committees, and I know you're missing a bunch on here. So you're talking about a lot of meetings that you have already, night meetings. And I think that was part of the conversation was, you know, if you want to add workshops around this meeting schedule, you're kind of running out of days, which may explain why you're having problems with expulsion attendance.
Yeah, I mean,
Mr. Chair, may I ask what workshops you're going to pose instead of a meeting? Do you have those planned?
first.
yeah, I would, when, or what?
What topic?
I think the academy is something that we can do.
Okay.
I think there's gonna be another workshop on the what the academy is, and then the construction part of it also. I think we gotta get some finance in there after the budget process. So I think those two are two main ones right now. But I'm okay with committee meetings too. I mean, we'll just add workshops. I mean, because we don't, you know, I mean, there's a lot of committees here. There's a lot of to add workshops and then special meetings and stuff like that. We're out there. And my personal opinion is I don't think, and I speak for myself, I don't grasp a lot of it in a short period of time. When it's rushed in and you know, okay, let's get to this and let's get to that. So that's the only, like I said, the only reason why I said we could focus more on that, because then we'll have a workshop on top of the two meetings and then have that workshop and go through it. So, you know, if we can do it in the 1-and-1, if not, we can keep it, but I am certainly fine with keeping it till the end of the year the way it is. I mean, if that's what people feel, I'm okay with that. We're just throwing this out there. This was more of we touched on it maybe last time, this is more of an informational part. The action item is on there. We could, you know, we could, like I said, vote on it now. Or get a consensus from what people are, like we're trying to.
One question. As far as people that have a lot of experience, would you say that if these meetings were going to affect a schedule, a calendar, a year, would you see more effect, positive or negative, in the beginning of the year or in the end of the year?
That's what we're gonna find out.
Because that's a way to also.
Yeah.
That's why it's kind of good to see it, because you have the summer to kind of, if something falls out of place, you have that time to kind of.
Yeah, so I think that's why we were thinking about trying it now, only because of the last, you know, couple of workshops and stuff that were cut short and we didn't, you know, and frankly, on some of these things here, I mean, we could run through this stuff, you know, pretty quickly if we split it up into two things. But I mean, let's bring it to a vote, see what happens.
Board Chair, can I just provide some clarification before you go to the vote?
Yeah.
So, one, the idea behind the workshop model, the thing that you are finding yourself you don't have time for are the superintendent updates, which is essentially updates on the strategic plan. That's the thing you don't have time for. And so if Mr. Russo is the co-chair of the finance committee and he has questions, in most cases those questions get asked and not terribly different really in curriculum committee and community relations committee. But it's the superintendent's updates that are connected to the strategic plan. Not to pick on Kara Wanda tonight, but Kara Wanda is going to come up, make a presentation this evening talking about chronic absenteeism and one of the strategic plan goals. And I think we find ourselves oftentimes not with enough time to ask the follow-up questions that the board would like to ask. And so when we were talking about the workshop model, it would be Kara, and Kara likely, or this evening actually, Kelly Trucius and Kara Wanda presenting out on chronic absenteeism, how we're leveraging the LEAP grant to help move this work, and giving the board, pushing out the agenda on Friday before the meeting, and making sure the board had enough time to put their questions together. Like we really dig in on that. And we were envisioning, if this was approved this evening, that in our workshop model, that we would have an hour and a half or maybe 2-hour meeting, which we really had an opportunity to dig in, and folks left with a clearer understanding about the work. The next meeting, which would be a regular meeting with action, we anticipated that would be a shorter meeting. I also had heard previously that the board had a desire to have more meetings in person. And so I had recalled, Board Chair, you had saying maybe we could have some more committee meetings in person. We could back those up to board meetings if there was a desire to have them in person. I don't anticipate a board meeting being very long unless we have a lot of public participation. And so now if you have a committee meeting backed up to a board meeting, you still do not have a very long evening. Again, the long night, the way we were envisioning if we would go in this direction, would be the workshop night. And we did not consider the public participation adding it, but it can be added. I've worked in districts where public participation was part of the workshop as well. And I thought you made a really good point when you brought that up. Our families should not have to wait the entire month to circle back if they have something they need to share with us. So I just want to provide that clarification. The cabinet and I were prepared to provide the superintendent updates in the workshop. And then, of course, anything additional the board had an appetite to hear about. That we are seeing that you don't have the time to respond back to those presentations, separate from your committee work, where really, at least from what I've seen and heard, that we do have the time to get those questions in. So I just wanted to provide that clarification, just pause for a moment as we were considering the vote tonight.
Thank you. All right. So Lisa, can you read the motion? Yeah, first one. That's the motion to,
That the Board of Education suspend through the remainder of the 2022-23 school year the relevant portion of bylaw 9321. 1, time, place, and notice of meeting/regular meetings that requires one board meeting on the second Wednesday of each month to allow for a pilot program of a monthly workshop in lieu of such meeting, as recommended by the Policy Committee and in accordance with 23-48.
motion made by Louisa. Second? Second by Julie. Okay, we had the discussion now. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Kate, did you?
Aye.
Is that everyone?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Any abstentions?
We didn't get to the question part before you went into the vote.
What's that?
We didn't get into the discussion part before we went into the vote.
Oh, you have more discussion?
I had a question I had to ask for.
Oh, okay, no, I apologize, I thought we did that before we voted. You could ask a question.
No, that's okay.
Okay. So just for clarification, we had 2 noes. Al Russo and Ms. Gladys Cooper, right? Okay, and no abstentions. Okay, so motion carries. Bridget, can you read the motion? B.
Authorization of signature change form dash child nutrition programs. Motion that the Board of Education approve the authorization of signature change form for the ED-099 agreement for child nutrition programs in accordance with 23-49, which is on page 7.
Motion made by Bridget,
Second.
second by Kate. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Superintendent's report.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Academies of Nashville Study Visit. Let me start off by saying I'd like to thank Mayor Esposito, Councilman Perkins, Dwayne Perkins, John Kleinhans, who's part of the mayor's team, and Tom Hughes, the superintendent of construction for the city of Danbury. These folks from the city of Danbury, of course, with our very own Brent Dean, Director of Health Partnerships, and our Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction, we all went to Nashville, Tennessee to visit, for a study visit for the academies at Nashville. There are over 82,000 students in the district. Their demographics are very diverse, and many of their schools and classrooms look a lot like Danbury Public Schools. We had an opportunity on the first day of the welcome to meet the superintendent, to meet one of the board members. I hesitated to say one of the founding board members, but I believe she was there from the beginning. Many of the business partners and really had an opportunity to better understand the structure of the Academy's model. There were over 400 people in attendance. This happens 2 times per year in Nashville. So there's one in the fall and one in the spring, in which they invite in school districts across the country. At our meeting, there was actually some folks there also from Scotland, as in the country. And so a lot of folks are coming to observe the model, given its successes in Nashville. I believe the story that they shared with us around 15, 16 years ago, maybe 17, 18 years ago, their high school was at an atrocious high school graduation rate of 58-point-something% graduation. And so the city was borderline being taken over by the state. And they realized they needed to do something different and move toward this model. The district now, as a district, again, 82,000 plus, I believe is close to 85-86% graduation rate, which is a considerable leap from where it initially started, and it got everyone's attention. And so they put a map up, and I'll just share the story. They put a map up of the United States. They didn't have the contents up on the map, but they did put up a map of the United States, and I think there were only...
waste of money on that time, Sharon.
There were only 3 or 4 states here that had not been part of, in some way, one way or the other, visited Nashville to have an opportunity to observe the model. So we're in good company in that regard. Day 1 was simply a welcome and an opportunity to network. We didn't do too much networking because we didn't know anyone, so we really just got to know each other better. Really one of the major goals of this trip was really to develop clearer, better understanding around, not necessarily for us, but for the city of Danbury to get a better and clearer understanding about the model, so they could better understand what needed to be funded and help people like Councilman Perkins to understand what he was advocating for if he chose to do so. Day 2, we had a very ambitious agenda starting at 7:30, 7 o'clock in the morning until probably 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And this was a series of workshops in which we broke out, and I don't think all of us were the same exact workshops. But for example, I attended a workshop with the mayor and 2 people from his office looking at the various stages of development to bring the Academy's model to your district. And it talked about a lot of the same things that we've heard about and how it's important to begin to bring in the business community to help make sure our kids have these internship experiences. The presenter, and Carol, I'm assuming they shared the same thing in yours. But it wasn't just about externship experiences for the students, but it was also making sure we provided those same opportunities for our staff as well. And that staff was actually coming back with new ideas about how to instruct differently based on what potentially could be applied in their classroom. And it was also critical, as the presenter was talking about, how critically important professional development was in this model for our teachers, and really just hammering home things like externship opportunities for teachers. The same way it benefits our students, it will also benefit our teachers. I do want Kara to speak a little bit about the teaching and learning part and the business development part. I don't think you're going to hear things terribly different than we've heard before. The biggest difference for us was the mayor's office had a better understanding about the model. Something that was reinforced that we already know that works, my team and I already know that works, and something I want to try to explain to the board tonight. But this was reinforced during our visit, at least for me. And so I think we've talked to the board, and as we get out in the community, we'll certainly reinforce this with our families and students. So many of us in this room have had either had kids who've been in elementary school or have kids in elementary school and kind of appreciate the relationships that you develop with teachers, the relationships that our kids develop with their peers, and appreciate the relationship that our kids develop with their teachers. But we also know, particularly if you have kids who are older now, those relationships don't look exactly the same. They're not as rich as they were in elementary school. Certainly, our families don't have the same meaningful and rich relationships with the adults as they did when our kids were in K-5. In this model, though, that changes considerably. And so, Kara in previous presentations talked about the fact that all of our students will start off at Danbury High School in the 9th grade, and then they will make a choice into what academy they will go into. And so once they choose to go into an academy, they will be in a building, an academy, in 2 different buildings, of no more than 400 to 450 students, which in many cases is smaller than some of our elementary schools and districts. Not our middle school, but is smaller than some of our elementary schools and districts. Let me also state that I was reminded during these walks, as I'm admiring the kids and the students and their relationships with staff, and the staff's relationship with their peers, and the staff's relationships with kids, and the fact that our teachers knew all of the kids, and the fact that the principals knew all of the kids, and all of the kids knew the teachers, and all the kids knew the principal of their academy. Because now we're in spaces that's manageable of 400 to 450 students. But then it gets better, because the structure, my kid, our kids, are in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. And so typically when our kids leave elementary school, they go to middle school, and every year the teachers are changing, and changing, and changing. This is what our kids experience, and this is why as parents, we don't have the same relationship with staff anymore. And this is the part that changes, because once if we're students in an academy, our teachers are the same for the next 3 years. 10, 11, 12th graders, the teachers in that community, this is now our community, right? And I may not have the same exact teacher for English, 10th and 11th and 12th grade, but the community is the same. And so all of the teachers, math, English, science, social studies, that interdisciplinary group, these are the same 4 faces that I'm looking at every day. And then there's an elective teacher that, like, this becomes my core. And these folks become the cohort of staff who's following me to make sure I'm taken care of. And so in district, we have what we call a student assistant team. Did I say that correctly? And so our SAT team, not to be confused with the exam, our staff sits down perhaps monthly with their principal. In these meetings, we can look at a roster of students and say, hey, these kids are not doing well in class. What do we need to do? What interventions do we need to provide? What interventions need to be provided to make sure our kids are coming to school more regularly? But now, instead of doing it in this building of 3,500, where Dan has this unmanageable list where he's trying to find our kids to get them in school every day, it's now, that roster looks like this. And now the percentage of kids who need intervention is even smaller, perhaps. The most important thing is all of the teachers are having structured conversations about those students and making sure they're on the phone with the mothers and fathers in this community who they will now know for the next 3 years. And so certainly as I'm walking with my team and saying, oh my gosh, this is the true backbone of the model, because you can say that regardless of what breakout room you went into, because if you go into the business connection, the business room where they make sure our kids have internship experiences, you can say, well, that's a really important part of the model. Obviously, the teaching and learning curriculum instruction part of the model where our kids are truly engaged like never before, that's probably the true backbone of the model. But this piece, where we're making sure all of our kids, no one slips through the cracks, and if they do, it's not because every teacher in the cohort has been part of interventions for them. My biggest takeaway, because there were some amazing things that we saw, and Kara will also help me out here. One of my biggest takeaways was everyone is all in on the 400 and 450 kids in the academy. And all of the teachers are talking, speaking like one. There's a cohort, there's a team of teachers working with my kid now versus a comprehensive high school where there's an English department of just too many people. And so I just wanted to take a moment as you're hearing all of the wonderful things about the model, and I don't want to downplay it because it's wonderful. That's the real thing that's going to really attract our kids because it's fun. And I'll just share one more thing before I hand it over to Kara. Day 2, because day 1 was just about bouncing to different sessions and getting a better understanding of what the academy's going on. Day 2 was about the school visit. And so one, I appreciated the fact that we didn't just go to schools that were beautiful and shiny. They just were not. And the fact that they're experiencing these successes with the limited resources, just like Danbury, and quite frankly, probably less so than we have. The fact that they're still experiencing this kind of success, I think, speaks well of how this model can help us here in Danbury. Yes, when we got to the school, there was an amazing band that welcomed your superintendent once we got off the bus. It wasn't just about me, but I'm just making it about that baby right now. But we go into the school, and there was and Kara, I don't know if your group got the same presentation, but it was an Academy of Criminology, etc. This is the first school, I think that was your second school. And the forensics teacher was telling us that they have a spook night at the school. And this is how fun the work was. And I said, I'm sorry, can you tell me more? What does that mean? Because I'm thinking this is a Halloween night. And she goes, no. She goes, I organized it with the kids, and I sat with all of my other peers, my other teachers, to make sure all of the teachers were part of it in some way. So this is like a criminology type connection academy. But in forensics, they put tape on the floor as if there was a crime scene all throughout the building. And then with that crime scene, her kids did forensic studies on anything that was touched in the area. Oh, but wait a minute. Then there was another class that played a part, because if they found the people who were responsible for this, they had a, what was the courtroom, Kara? What was that called? Mock?
It's like a mock trial.
So they had a mock trial courtroom. And so if, I'm going to pick on John Spang, if John Spang was one of the guilty parties because his fingerprints were all over the tape, John would have to go in the courtroom and as part of a mock, and when I say a mock trial, I mean it was the judge's chambers, there was a gavel, there was a robe on the student, there was the jurors over to the right-hand side, all made up of students. There were folks from the community who could watch in the background. When they literally have real cases at the school where a judge would come in and help facilitate the meetings. They redid a shop class and put carpet on the floor at another school and made a huge mock judge room, courtroom. The students were having fun, and the entire trip was led by what the district calls ambassadors, where everyone greets you with a blazer on. And all of these students in the blazer, because one of the academies, I'm not sure which school, I don't know. So well, I heard about the letter. So so the academies, all of the kids greet you with, only the ambassadors greet you with the blazer on. And they're actually taught through their, they're actually taught and trained at the beginning of the year on how to host, because this is actually a big money maker for the academies at Nashville. And so when 400 people come into your space and you're paying $1,600 for registration for every single person, right? That includes, not flights, but like hotel and all of those things. You have to make sure these folks are welcome. And so everyone was, but everything was led by the students. And so, and Kara and Kelly, I don't know if when you guys went to Nebraska, it was also led by the students in places, et cetera.
Yes.
But it's an incredible model with, and I think every space that we went to, from Councilman Perkins to Mayor Esposito, Tom Hughes, who's superintendent of construction, And I mean, he was just beside himself, so excited because he puts together he reads the architectural plans and all of these projects. And for the first time, he's able to see in action, like it came to life, and he goes, now I really understand what you need. And I think because of it, we're going to benefit because this man had an opportunity to be on the site. And so we have, and typically in Nashville, they host 2 times a year. It's in the fall and in the spring. And so I am hoping we can extend invitations to the board when we have another round of visits, because our hope is to get board members, more teachers, because we did have teachers go. I forget which one they went to, Kara. I know you have one coming up in North Carolina soon. But if you can you speak to you told me to just throw anything to you, so can you speak to the business part and the curriculum piece? I think those were equally powerful. I mean, they were all powerful.
Yeah, I was trying to find the slides of the pictures, still going through all the pictures that we took.
So I'm sorry, while Kara's getting ready for this, I'm walking around the schools, and because I can't help it, the competitive side was getting the best of me, and I'm thinking, I know we haven't been in it for 16 years, but we can do this better. Like we can do this. And I mean, we're a year in just putting together the background piece. And I would say that we're ahead of schedule, kind of given the talent we have on our side. And I'm looking around the building, I'm sure you thought it too, Kara. Like I know it's not the first time you've been, but it looked good, but we're in a different place than they were. We were not at 58% graduation rate when we started this model. We're trying to go from good to great, and I think we're going to be really well positioned for it. Okay, I'll
I don't think you left very much left for you to talk about, but that's okay. You know, in reference to that graduation rate, one thing was important to point out is that first number that in the 50s was when their state collected graduation rate by 5 years. There was a 5-year graduation rate in the 50s that went to like high 80s after converting to a 4-year graduation rate. So that was just a dramatic turnaround. In addition to that, the attendance numbers dramatically increased, the discipline rates dramatically decreased, and there were higher levels of engagement in their less student discipline issues. So we were super impressed by that. And one of the groups, because we asked specifically around second language learners, some of the questions we have are, what is the best way to make sure that we're engaging how everyone can participate and access, and that was the group that grew the most in their shift to the model. And so that was important to us, particularly with our district. So we were excited to hear some of these things. And it was interesting because the first time that I had gone down to Nashville, it was just pre-pandemic. We had closed school that week that we were down there. And we had a whole team that was supposed to attend, and just a couple of us ended up going at the last minute because there were so many uncertainties in March 2020 and what was happening in that moment. And the lens with which I was seeing things for the second time was very different. I had a whole other layer of questions to ask, and so I was very appreciative of a second opportunity to go down there. But even more excited to see Kevin and our city leaders engage for the first time and connect some of the dots, I think, that maybe you can't appreciate until you see it in action. And I think that's kind of the one piece that everyone is waiting to see is what does this really look like when it's all together. And I was thrilled and humbled with the level of engagement of our group, the kinds of questions that they were asking, the way that they interacted with the students. I was completely impressed with how enamored the whole group was with it. I just left feeling really good that we had a group that just became a stronger advocate for the work coming back. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that city team it was great to partner with them in this way. In terms of some of the curriculum, one of the schools that stood out obviously the most was McGavock High School. I know that you had a chance to go there as well. We had a chance to see a multitude of the academies that are offered there. The part that stood out the most, as it did the first time that I went, was the ability for these students to articulate what they were doing, why they were doing it, the passion that they had with the subjects that they chose to engage with, the number of certifications they had already acquired under their belt, how they were pre-planning their college experiences and their choices that were so defined because of the pre-work that they were doing in the academy. and some of the offers and opportunities that they already had from either work-based places that were interested in them because they had done some internships, or the college programs that they're applying to, where there were potential scholarships that they were well positioned to get because of their experiences coming out of the school that put them just far ahead of their peers. And beyond academics, because while the academics are equally as important. One of the things that this academy model did for Nashville, particularly when they added the early college opportunities, was it really raised the rigor for everybody. And there was an expectation that all kids will take a dual college class before they graduate, or at least attempt that, and that they work towards stackable industry credentials before they exit and participate in internships and capstone experiences, which really positioned them well. One of the things that I think, so we, as Kevin mentioned before, we participated in a district and state leadership group, the stages of implementation session, and also one again on how to integrate the dual college and certification piece, which is really important to us right now because we're really trying to understand the best way to approach that and do that. It's a pretty large endeavor, and so we appreciate the opportunity to dig in and ask some really key questions on that. And we also made some great contacts with the folks down there that we feel that will serve as a resource to us. They also do a tremendous amount of professional development. So they have a whole arm called the Nashville Hub that folks who, once they visit, can tap into for further guidance as they go. So we'll probably be giving them a few calls in the next year or two, which would be phenomenal. The other thing I think that came out of this trip that I don't know if I was thinking about it in this way, but through all the conversations that we had, and a lot of opportunity for conversations within our group, we saw incredible equipment in these academies. And so, every time we walked in, we saw robotic arms, like the things that you would find in a car factory, and then mini versions that the kids were playing on, that when I say play, they were coding to make the arm move a certain direction, that were picking up cups and knocking cups in a certain direction, and those were being measured. And the kids, through trial and error, had to keep recoding to get the automated arm to do exactly what it needed to do. And they had to take notes on these things and work. So it was just incredible what they were engaged in for their age, which was unbelievable. But I kept asking, where'd you get this equipment? How did you get this equipment? Did the city fund this? Like, how did you get the equipment? And they talked a lot about some of the bigger grants that they received because they have such a structure in place that positions them well to receive different types of grants that maybe a school district wouldn't normally receive by themselves. But with the conversations, we had some great conversations with the city because we realized that when you try to approach these larger grants, you need to show demonstrated city partnership, right? Partnering with your university, you're partnering with the business community in a highly structured way, and you're partnering with the school system, and you have stakeholder engagement. And when you put all of those things together, and to create RFPs for grants, you win those big block grants, and that's what Nashville is doing and doing really well. So their business engagement is second to none. They have a massive organization that grew out of the groundwork in the development of the program called Pencil. They have over 350 major business partners in the Nashville area. Nashville's very fortunate because they are a very fast-growing, large metropolitan area, and so there's lots of businesses to pick from. But those business partners are at the table, and they are helping to support the schools over time, internships, externships, as Mr. Walson mentioned, and that is where the teachers go out and they see the work in these pathways. So they're able to come back and make those connections and then work collaboratively across content area teams to do interdisciplinary planning to bring those pieces to life for students. So in addition to the students being engaged, when the staff spoke about the work that they were doing, there was this vigor and passion with which they spoke about the work and the connectedness, and because they're also able to apply their passions as well, because they were teaching in areas that were exciting to them as well. So we just saw this energy from the staff that was just wonderful. So I know we're going on kind of long, and but I do think it was a very successful visit in terms of achieving the goals, which to kind of build a great partnership and understanding and so that folks can advocate for us on a variety of different levels. And I felt that by the time we returned from that trip, that we were very much speaking the same language about the importance of the direction and what was needed to get it done.
So I just wanted to end on this regarding the trip. I think we, for me anyway, I had a greater appreciation of how complex Brett Dean's role is in the district. When really looking at this, at least from the grand scale in Nashville, and there's different organizations that actually help support Brett's role at different schools. And so there's kind of, that's the pencil group. The pencil group is kind of the glue that helps to manage all of these things. I don't know if we would need that anytime soon. But the point is, it gets so complex that you need an outside partner to help to manage, to make sure when John Spain picks up the phone from the Nissan Corporation, there's someone there to answer the phone all the time. And may not necessarily be the case if you have a staff person here. So it's a company or an organization, I should say, that's dedicated just to the partnerships and leveraging them to help support the schools. Almost like the United Way kind of helps the community. We would have like a partner to help to manage the partnerships to help the district as an entity. Yes, Teresa.
When can the board go?
Yes, so there is a trip in the fall and a trip in the spring. And so we are looking to circle back and extend invitations there.
Yes. Thank you.
Sounds good. Any other questions or anything?
Did you see any specific academies that we're going to be having up here?
Yeah, so they did. They have a biomedical academy, engineering academy. Those are pretty well established there, and some of their more popular academies, as I would anticipate that those would be ours as well. So we did spend some time having a lot of conversation about those. We asked a lot of questions. They do have a digital media and design, which is sort of similar to one that we have. So, so in addition to just not making those connections, there's a lot of groundwork that they have done and project ideas in the way that they integrated across an academy. So multiple pathways. For instance, one of the pictures I was trying to look, they produced this, like they replicated like the CMT awards. So yes, it was fun, right? It was fun, but it was standards-based. There was rigorous requirements. You had one group that had to produce, they had to write all of the script and had to create legal contracts with all of the people who were attending and do all of that writing. And then there was, photography and video set up place. There was a group that shot the raw footage of it, and then another group in a different pathway that had to edit it. We walked in on one of the, it was like an Adobe, it was not only Adobe Photoshop, I forgot the program they were working on. They were getting certified across the year in 3 different areas of very high-tech editing software and animation software programs. And the kids were in there, I mean, the amount of buttons and features and things were making my head spin, and they were clicking through these and editing and adding things and green screen, you name it. It was adding sound in the background and making certain noises happen at certain time periods. It was unbelievable. But each group had a different role, and it was standards based, and they had to fulfill their role, and they had to produce, and they had to communicate and present on those things, and they had to come together. So it was, and those were just their elective courses. So they had their, typical courses as well, but just fascinating to see what they were producing. But there were a lot of great, I was taking tons of notes on the different certifications that they were putting the students through the paces for that were valuable, that the ones I hadn't even heard of, because I'm not a cinematographer or a videographer. So helpful to make those connections as well. So we learned a lot, and we'll continue to cherry pick things that from the different academies as we visit.
So, being that, did you see any of the schools that have an interaction like we're going to have here with middle school and high school?
Yes, I did not. I don't know if Kara did. I did not get to see the middle schools in action. They were not part of the academy theme. But I think our second school was 612. That was your first school.
It was 612, but we didn't see
Yeah, I
middle
didn't
school
see-
at
I
all.
didn't see middle school.
We did ask questions about how that the academy model at the high school transformed the rest of the school district.
Mhm.
And so what happened is over time, they wanted to prepare the kids in a better way for the academy, the rigors of the academy. And so they started to create some structures that backed into middle school. And now they even have like coding and programming in K-5 and things along those lines so that the kids could progress and advance even further through certain things at that level. So they did kind of a micro version, STEM courses and different other courses at the middle school to get them ready, sort of kind of a pre-academy work. Wasn't nearly as anything extensive as the 9-12 version, but certainly helped to position students.
Great. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
So, one more item on the agenda, and this is goal 4.2, school climate. And Carol Wanza has an update regarding chronic absenteeism. I know this is a challenge that I had shared with the board previously during one of my superintendent evaluation meetings. This continues to be a challenge for the state of Connecticut, but also right here at home here in Danbury. So Carol's going to give us an update on how we're doing, what our numbers look like, and how we're doing to try to fix it.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm going to start us off. Karen and I will do this presentation together. It's all right. We changed things up a little bit on you. So we're going to talk about school attendance in a couple different ways. We're going to first go over the data in district, or go over definitions, talk about what our district level data is, and then talk about some strategies that we're utilizing currently, and particularly things that our LEAP grant has enabled us to do. So first I just want to go over two definitions for you because there's an important and distinct difference between the two. The first is attendance rate, which is the percentage of a school or district's overall student population that are coming to school. So that's the percentage of students that are present at school, or the percentage of students at a district level that are present on any given day. Chronic absenteeism is when your students are missing 10% or more of the given school year. So a good example of that is if we're 100 days into a school year, if a student has missed 10 or more school days, they are considered chronically absent. Earlier in the school year, if you're only 20 days into the school year, 2 days of missed school would consider you for chronic absenteeism. So it's a moving target that does change over the course of a school year, but a lot of the attendance data and research on, where does it become detrimental to a student is beyond, the level of chronic absenteeism, where students missing a significant number of days in a given school year, could lead to different disengagement, learning challenges, and so forth. So that's an important factor, as we're going through the presentation, the difference between the two definitions. The other thing I just want to share is that the LEAP grant will come to the end of the presentation, and we'll focus on some specific details related to that. But the whole purpose of the LEAP grant was post-pandemic to really make sure that we can leverage and put strategies in place to re-engage students and families in school. So Carol will go through some of the data that we currently have and compare us to the state level data, and then I'll talk specifically to some strategies that we're currently implementing.
Hi, good evening. I just want to draw your attention to this slide where we demonstrate what the current attendance rate is for Danbury Public Schools as well as the state. We provided some trend data so you can see what it was over time. For the 1920 year, that was only in-person days. So once the school shut down, that was not included. But overall, when we're looking at attendance rate by the state or by the district, you're looking at the number of days present and compared to their days enrolled, right? So we've always had pretty high attendance rates, and even during the pandemic years, that was not an exception. We saw a slight decrease as the state did. You'll see the state is in blue, and Danbury School District is in orange. So we saw a slight decrease from 1920 and 94.9. We were always kind of around 95%, and to a decrease of 92.3. When we look at the high needs students, and again, those are students who are students with disabilities, are multilingual learners, or students who are qualified for free and reduced lunch, so they can be in one of those categories or all three. Those students have a slightly lower attendance rate, both at the state and district level, and our number was 91.6. Our current year-to-date attendance rate, that was as of the end of January actually, is 92.2% for all of Danbury and 91.7% for our high needs students. So you'll see that our attendance rate is slightly above the state average when it comes to our high needs students. Let's see. For the chronic absenteeism data, it is a similar trend with the state. So again, we want attendance rate data to be very high because that's how many days students are present. We want chronic absenteeism data to be low. So the lower the number, the better. So when we really look at chronic absenteeism data, because now you're really looking at a student's experience. How many days is a particular student actually in school? And this is highly predictive of the amount of instructional time that they're receiving. One of the things that is super important to focus on is our kindergarten data as well as 9th grade. When we talk about chronic absenteeism, it's a predictor of graduation rates and students staying on track. So in the past, in 18-19 pre-pandemic years, our chronic absenteeism data was below the state average at 7.1%, and then a drastic increase as a result of the pandemic. So as of the 21-22 school year, we were at 23.5% students were absent 10 or more percent of their enrolled days, and that almost matches the state average of 20, or of the absenteeism rate for the state, because they were at 23.7 when you considered all the students enrolled in the state of Connecticut. Our current rate is slightly lower as of the end of January at 21.3. Our high need students as of last year was at 26.7. In the past, pre-pandemic, it was at 8.3. So obviously many factors as a part of the years of the pandemic are affecting chronic absenteeism. We're highly engaged in strategies with the state through our LEAP funding, but our high needs rate is drastically lower than the state rate, which was at 34%. So the next slide, just so you can see historically, because we know that some chronic absenteeism rates are predictors of student performance and graduation, I did include that by grade level because I'm often asked about that. What are the grades that are most chronically absent? And at the elementary level, it's K and 1. Currently 8th grade at middle school, and at high school is the highest for the district overall, with grade 12 being the highest of 9 through 12. Some strategies you'll hear about specifically target specific grade levels to try to engage students, particularly with our kindergarten transition program last year, and education with parents and engaging those families.
So what strategies have we put in place? We've been doing this since before the pandemic, but with an increased focus of attention and effort post-pandemic, as you can see. While our chronic absenteeism rates do mirror the state and are slightly better for our high needs population, they are drastically different than they were prior to the pandemic. So we broke up kind of two different buckets of the things that we're doing. One is the systems in district that we have in place to help with chronic absenteeism, and the second are the particular strategies that we're putting into place with students and their families. So I'll start by first going over the systems. District-wide, it's a focus and attention across the district. Every single building has a school improvement plan, and chronic absenteeism and improving the attendance of students there is a specific component of the school's plans. We also have a district data team where we focus on every single meeting that we have, looking at attendance rates and data. In addition to our achievement data, we also want to see who's here, and for those students that aren't here, what is the impact? So we're also looking at what categories of students, grade level, as Kara had referenced before, our kindergartners, our 8th graders, our high school students tend to be overall areas that we need to focus attention on, and that's how we deploy strategies and resources. We also are looking at our attendance committees at the school level. So every single school has an attendance committee that's typically comprised of building level administration, the pupil services support staff members, so that's your school social workers, school psychologists, counselors, oftentimes your school nurses, and other lead teachers in the building. And their effort, and Kara and I both push into those meetings quite regularly to talk to them about their school-specific data. So we see district level trends that we share with the schools, but certain schools have an increased. For example, in some of our schools, their multilingual learner population has a higher level of chronic absenteeism. In other schools, we notice that their kindergarten, or maybe it's their 3rd grade population. And so we talk about specific strategies of who we can target and how we can intervene. The other thing we've done is through Attendance Works. Attendance Works is an organization that has research-based strategies that you can use for to help both educate families on the importance of attendance. And we've noticed that as a really significant area that we have to work on. During the pandemic, we were telling families, if your child has the sniffles, keep them home, and keep them home for a long time, right? And particularly for some of our younger families, that was their first exposure to school. They're now nervous if their kid has a scratchy throat or a tickle or, some small little thing that we weren't typically worried about prior to the pandemic. They're nervous of sending their kids to school, so it's an education around, pandemic has been, while it's still something we're faced with, we are kind of on the other side, and we are looking at things a little bit differently and really helping them to understand that being in school and being in school regularly is super important. And then lastly, really looking at the resources that we have. So the deans are listed up there. That is something that the high school has. That's a particular focus of their attention and effort, particularly with our 9th graders, to get them back on track. Our family liaisons that we've been fortunate enough to have in the buildings, particularly many of whom are bilingual, that help to get the messaging out to our families, really support some of our staff in reaching out to them, and really just having individual conversations with families. What are the barriers? Why isn't your student coming to school, or your child, coming to school? Sometimes it's a lack of understanding of the importance of attendance. Other times it might be lack of access to food services, lack of access to daycare. It could be a whole host of issues. And so those individual conversations are really meant to identify barriers that families are experiencing, and then to help put strategies in place. It could also be that the child doesn't want to come to school because they're having difficulty with a particular subject or content, peer, you name it, but it's really focused on those individual reasons to then intervene and improve and follow up on. So the strategies, I've alluded to some of them. Home visits, going, knocking on the door and helping to get families. If you're not coming to us, we're coming to you. We've also expanded that definition of home visits to also really include any type of meeting that we have with families around attendance. It could be a phone conversation, it could be a Google Meet, a Zoom meeting, it could be physically meeting them out somewhere in the community or at their home. But really liaisoning with those families and partnering with them that we're not here to criticize, but we're here to partner with you, figure out the reason, figure out an intervention and a plan, and ultimately help your child to be more successful in school. Big focus of our kindergarten orientations and any of our transitional grades, that transition into middle school, transition into high school, where we're reminding our administrators to talk to families about the importance of attendance and different expectations as they kind of progress through the grades. We're providing academic interventions. I referenced that one of the barriers is children struggling with learning. We know there was learning loss during the pandemic, and so sometimes that lack of desire to come to school, particularly with some of our secondary students, is fundamentally a lack of being successful in an academic content area, and so how are we providing those interventions? We've also enhanced the opportunities and offerings in our Twilight program, which is our after-school credit recovery. One of the barriers we hear our high school students, our secondary students talking about is, well, I wasn't successful first semester and so I lost credit. Okay, here's an opportunity and how you can get them back and get back on track and graduate with your class. We've expanded summer school offerings for a very similar reason, to provide continuity of education for them, but also an opportunity to earn back credits and get back on track. We have incentives for school-wide initiatives, raffles, celebrations, prizes, things like that for younger students, things like postcards and celebrating success that are going out to some of our other students, and those are really individualized to the building. Building principals are able to make determinations with their school attendance teams on strategies that they feel would be helpful. It's been a consistent focus of our pupil services staff team to really talk about those attendance and intervene with families that are struggling in that area. And lastly, really just enhancing our partnerships. This is something we need to do together, right? If a child is not coming to school for whatever reason, the school district and that family need to work together and figure it out and intervene on behalf of that child to make it more successful. So those are just some quick snapshots of what we're doing. Sure.
Question, Captain. So two things. When someone doesn't come to school, they supposed to call in and you don't say your kids are not coming in. What percentage of people would you say actually do call in?
That's a great question.
So I can pull, if you're interested, what's considered excused or unexcused absences, and that's essentially what you're talking about. The majority of our absences are excused. And because what happens is if we do not hear from a parent, the school buildings are very proactive to locate this child, figure out where they are and what's the reason for the absence. So, that's a strategy that school admin assistants are engaged in.
So if you're not calling us, we're calling you.
Yeah.
Those first 9 days, remember, are first 9 days that a child is absent is at any reason that's given by the parent or guardian.
Right.
After that, there are specific allowable reasons for being out of school.
Right. And the second thing was, I saw home visits on there. We actually used to have a person, years ago, we used to actually go to your house here in Danbury. That stopped a couple of years ago, right?
Are you referring to the residency officer that would kind of check to see if students were living in Danbury or people that were going out? Because we had a position like that.
Yeah.
This is less.
Checking if you're actually sick.
Yeah.
Or what.
This is less about.
like a truancy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we had one when I was growing up, we used to call him Jumping Jack. He used to go all those places.
Yeah. So no, this is more like our school psychologist, social worker, school counselor, administrator, sometimes our school resource officer, parent liaison. You're not coming to us. Usually we're starting by those phone calls. And setting up an expectation that you're coming in, maybe a meeting at the school, but eventually helping and supporting by going to the house.
It's a lot, with that amount of students, it's a lot to get your arms around.
Yeah, and so it's very individualized to the building with their plans. I mean, Kelly and I support all the buildings in trying to come up with different and individualized approaches to allow them to know that there is a diverse set of strategies that you can use, and they're very inventive about coming.
And so there are certain situations that's our way push into the building levels. There are certain students that are exceeding that 10% threshold, but there is a very known, medical reason for that absence.
Right.
That's not the child that we're knocking on the door. But it's really important to monitor the data, not that we're not keeping in contact with that family. Of course we are, and there's certainly sometimes, homebound instruction or something that we can put in place. But it's really important to really have those ongoing conversations about why are these kids out? What do you know about the family? What do you know about the situation that's going on? Any of the barriers that have been identified? Usually what the school-based attendance teams are doing is identifying a subset of the population that they're going to focus on in the next week or two, designate roles for each person who's going to follow up with which family, and then come back and report out on that.
And because it's not unique to Danbury, we do have the LEAP grant, which is a part of Connecticut's initiative to resolve some of the problems of practice that exist right now due to the pandemic. It's almost having to unlearn all the things that we were doing for this amount of time, like a school culture and climate where it's like, just stay home if you need to. So Kelly can talk a little bit about that.
So did you have
Other questions?
Yes. Real quick, will be a child that is late, like 2 hours or 3, would be considered absent or late?
So you have to be in school at least half the designated hours of a school day in order to be considered present for that day. So you'll be much tardy, but if you've missed more than half the school day, then you're considered absent for that day.
Thank you.
Sure.
How did you keep track of attendance when school was closed?
So there were a lot of procedures, let me tell you. So it was touching base with at certain points in the day virtually with teachers turning in assignments. The state had very specific definitions around what counted as a remote school day. So we followed those specific criteria and developed them with the teachers. I mean, a lot of this.
SQL.
Yeah, we had other contact folks that were providing follow-up when we did reopen to support the remote learners that were quarantined. I mean, it was an extreme effort.
It wasn't easy.
Of all staff, and particularly the teachers. A lot of this during the time where students were remote learning, it was on the backs of teachers to really engage these families and these teachers. It was amazing. It was really amazing.
So lastly, the LEAP grant, that has enabled us to have some additional resources, both staffing resources as well as some material resources and trainings for our staff to really enhance their knowledge and strategy base on how to engage our families and re-engage our families in school. The purpose of it is really to do just a handful of things: increase attendance at school, increase engagement at school, and then to support the successful outcomes of students, particularly those that experienced the most challenges and difficulties from an educational perspective during the pandemic. So we're only one of 15 districts across the state that have been the recipient of these funds. This year, we received them. Last year, we did as well. We do not know about next year, although I'm very hopeful, but we have yet to hear about that. But this has been a tremendous resource to us to be able to support with this work, and we're very fortunate to receive this funding.
If there's any other questions? Yeah.
Do you, as you monitor the chronic students, do you see an improvement, like on an individual
Yes.
basis with certain families when you do the intervention?
Yes.
So, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
So specifically, what we do is we develop sheets for each school on a monthly basis. We pull all the students who are chronically absent, and what happens is the principal then facilitates with their staff how they're going to engage the families. We then keep notes on that, and then we are really seeing a change. As you see, like it's a slight decrease from last year, but we're going the right direction. And schools that have employed some of these strategies, we're really seeing a change. And what we keep saying to folks is like, keep engaging families, even if you don't see the effects right away, because the conversation you have now might not change the behavior this minute, but they might think twice about it next time. So if they have that vacation planned that didn't seem like a big deal when we were kind of in a different place, maybe next year they will think twice about scheduling that during school time. Yeah.
The other thing to remember, just to add on to that, is once you hit 18 days, if you were here all year long, you're going to be chronically absent, right? So there are some students that have already hit that threshold. But even still, we may not be seeing the percentage of chronic absenteeism decreasing for those particular students, but we're still trying to improve from now until the end of the year so there's not further learning loss. So we keep track of both the chronic absenteeism rates, but also the individual attendance rates by month for those students to make sure that we're seeing traction in the right direction.
Any other questions? Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Karen.
Board Chair, that concludes our update.
Okay. So board chairperson's report, nothing to report at this time. Any board members from PTOs or any events attended? Anybody want to say anything about what they've been doing? Julie?
I just want to say that I have a great time with Across America. I read Great Plains and Park Avenue. It was very nice, so just
Awesome, great. Yes, please.
I also read for the pre-K at the Ellsworth Avenue Extension the other day. It was fun.
Anyone else?
Can I jump in real quick, please?
Sure, Kate.
I went to the citywide PTO meeting on Monday, and I just wanted to mention that they have a number of folks who are going to be moving out of leadership positions at various PTOs and at the citywide level. So if there are any parents who are watching this, please consider stepping up to help with that work, okay? Thank you.
Thanks, Kate. Michelle, something, anybody? I don't want to cut anybody off. All right. Yeah, Ms. Cooper.
Just a question. A complaint from a parent, and I guess we need to know where this started. It's in the elementary school. The young man keep coming home with rotten apples and rotten bananas. So they don't get their food. The lunch people put the food on the tray, am I correct? And the children do not exchange food with other children. And the reason I know this is because my granddaughter said, no, Grandma, we don't do that. So my question is, if there's a concern that who oversees these people to make sure that they're not sending or giving a kid rotten stuff. It might look bad when they, one little spot, by the time the kid get home and it not turned brown, and the kid said they can't eat it as good. So, I guess my question is who oversees to make sure that no child is bringing anything bad like that or putting it in their lunch or coming home?
That'll be a building.
So they can bring it to the attention of the building principal, and our principal will call district office. Mr. Spang, his office oversees the service, the contracts for this group. But Dr. Ann Mead and I have also had a series of meetings with families about concerns and these kind of questions from our vendor. So now that it's been brought to our attention, we'll make sure that the vendor has been made aware of our unhappiness of what we're hearing from our students and parents.
Because it didn't happen just once, it's happened, it's been happening. And, I know none of us want our kids to eat bad food or bad anything. So, we really have to be careful of what you're giving. Just like we're teaching them, we want them to do right. Thank you.
I just want to say about the student protest tonight. I'm just upset that they didn't come to us first before going to the city.
Wanted them to protest us first.
Well, make their complaints known. I guess it's about lack of enough AP classes or that type of thing. That's all.
Yeah, express concerns. Sure.
Yeah, first. And then, I don't mind them protesting, but start here.
Mr. Russo.
Thank you, sir. Last Thursday night, there was a meeting at Pembroke School, and I made an unannounced visit and attended that meeting. And that we shared the concerns of the parents. We are there for them. We do care. And Mr. Wilson did a remarkable job, sir. And in a tense situation, and there will be a resolution, I am sure. I want to thank you for your efforts there that night, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Russo. And we do have an ongoing investigation, and feel confident we will land on some resolution really soon. So thank you.
My last thing, I know we have a couple of years before the Career Academy is in full swing. I know I'm excited about it. I know everybody in the city should be excited about it. My question would be, at a workshop, how could we sort of bring this to full circle to look at it from a board perspective as to what Danbury High School is going to look like when the move comes, what the staffing is going to look like, and how we're going to sort of move that along. We know we work with people, the people that's going over to the academy, they might not think that I'm the best qualified person to go to the academy. So I'm talking about staffing and people having animosity between another person that gets to go and I don't get to go. So I think a workshop on sort of letting us know what Danbury High School is going to look like once the change comes Would that make sense?
Good idea, actually, yeah. We can incorporate that into the next workshop on the academy.
It doesn't have to be the next one, it's just, we have 2 years.
Yeah.
to go.
Let's do it while we can, right? Okay, anybody else?
Oh, I just want to say one more
All
thing. The principal Durkin from Ellsworth, I just want to commend her for her presentation, especially her short focus on academics, her math achievements. I do appreciate all the academic achievement news that we have. Thank you.
And Marty's been in this district a long time. But, okay, can I get a motion to adjourn? Motion by Teresa,
Second.
second by Julie.